Joining us live now is the Australian Workers Union National Secretary, Daniel Walton. Dan, good to see you. Happy New Year to you. I will ask you about coal in just a second, but it's been a busy week when it comes to gas. I want to get your thoughts on it. Small retailers not taking new residential gas customers. AGL stopped signing up commercial and industrial customers. Is this how you saw price caps working?
Well, good morning, Peter, and Happy New Year, I should say. Obviously, I think what we're seeing now is the big energy companies and the retailers still playing some games, waiting for this code of conduct to become mandatory. What we know is happening in the market at the moment is small users still struggling to get good deals, that those price caps are not flowing through to them. AGL have been offering some prices in the market around $40 a gigajoule, so they are still trying to game the system. What we know is it's too early to tell whether or not the government's legislation will make a meaningful impact. I certainly believe it will. But until we have a mandatory code of conduct, we're going to see these big gas companies and retailers still try and game the system at the expense of Australian domestic manufacturing and Australian households.
So what happens in the meantime before that code of conduct comes into play?
Well, to be honest with you, Pete, I think the government's got to move as fast as they can to bring it into place. The code of conduct exists in a voluntary manner. And what's happening is the ACCC are raising a whole lot of concerns about some of the behaviour from industry, but they don't have any real levers to give them a decent whack. And the federal government has said they're going to ramp up fines up to around about $50 million to actually give some decent teeth to the ACCC to look into it and to call out the behaviour when it's wrong. And what we know is the gas industry started jumping up and down saying it's unfair, but not a single Australian actually had any sympathy for the big energy companies here who are gouging mega super profits at the moment. Yeah. So that then started to transition their argument into say, well, it's just unworkable. I think the reality is it's too early to tell. But what I know is this industry has had it their own way now for the best part of a decade, and it's good to see them finally getting called to account.
So is the ACCC, just on that point there, is it a suitable umpire here? Has it got enough teeth?
No, not at the moment. I mean, yes, it is a suitable umpire, but does it have enough teeth? No. They've been calling out some bad behaviour in this industry now for several years, but the previous government never gave them the capacity to make any meaningful change. This government, the Albanese government, have weaponised against the ACCC to have some decent teeth, and when they find that bad behaviour, to be able to prosecute with some decent fines. That hasn't existed for a while, to be honest, Pete, and so I think once it fully gets into place, you'll start to see some gas getting supplied into the domestic market at a reasonable price.
Okay, but in the meantime, though, until this code of conduct comes into play, for troubled manufacturers, are they going to survive?
Well, unfortunately, over the Christmas break, I've been dealing with quite a few of them who are still yet to get some decent deals flowing through. Mag is one of the big facilities we look after down in Young, and they've been struggling to get any reasonable offers coming through. A lot of the gas companies have said to them through their brokers, well, we're going to sit back and wait to see what happens with the code of conduct before we offer some gas into the market. We've seen AGL provide an offer to them at around $40 a gigajoule. They're still absolutely taking the piss, to be honest with you. And I think the quicker the ACCC has the teeth to be able to investigate some of the behaviour of both the gas producers and retailers, the better all of Australia will be.
Okay, so, I mean, in the meantime, do you think stay the course, or does amendments need to be made just when it comes to the price caps?
Yeah, calls from the coalition to say scrap it are completely nonsense. This is from a group of people who sat on their hands for 10 years, did nothing to bring additional supply on, did nothing to deal with gas prices. They don't have any credibility in this space at all. What we know is it's too early to tell whether or not these mechanisms will have the intended effect. I certainly hope that they will. And when the ACCC gets the powers it should hopefully get in the next few weeks, I expect to see a number of the gas producers and retailers pull their heads in and start operating with some ethical behaviour to look after Australia and give Australia's gas to domestic users at a reasonable price.
Hey, just finally on this Matt Keane proposal today, wants to reserve 10% of coal, reserve it. It's interesting coming from Matt Keane, but do you support it? What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a good idea, to be honest with you, Pete. So what's happened when the federal government and the state governments worked and moved heaven and earth to try and get the provisions in place to put caps in place on coal and for gas. Unfortunately, what happened was the keeping an amount of coal in place was overlooked. And so we've got a number of producers, big cement producers, chemical producers who buy large volumes of coal themselves. And unfortunately, the coal caps only apply to energy producers. That is, if you run a coal generator, the coal caps applied to you. And what we know is coal producers in the state of New South Wales have been breaking their contracts and exporting coal overseas because they can get a higher price. And so we've been arguing and putting our position forward to the federal government and state government to say, you've done a lot of great work here, but you missed one little bit. And I think it's a good sign that New South Wales government's coming out today to say that we're going to put in place a coal cap, because there are a couple of manufacturers who purchase large amounts of coal who desperately need it.